Welcome to 39-Minute Conversations. Please wait for your host to begin this meeting. Your meeting is now being recorded.
Okay, can you see me? Can you hear me? I can neither see or hear you at this point.
Oh, sorry, it wouldn't let me. Okay, I had to agree to recording before it would let me say or do anything.
That's okay, you agreed, so perfect. That means we can do this.
All right, look at your professional setup.
I know, it's a microphone. That's... I'm very excited to chat with you and introduce you and get into it. But the first thing I do have to do is get through an ad read. I hope I hope you understand. I'm very sorry.
I'm ready. I have a snack. Go ahead.
Go for it. Enjoy. This week's episode of 39-Minute Conversations is not technically presented by current events going on in Hollywood. And by that, I am, of course, referring to the negotiations between the WGA and the AMPTP. I haven't spoken a ton about it on this podcast because I am not an expert on what's going on. I don't want to overstep my bounds or say the wrong thing. I'm not a guild captain. I'm not in the negotiating committee. I'm not an insider. Nothing I say here is official word on anything, but I am a proud member of the Writers Guild of America. And by the time this episode is released, we will know if we're on strike or if a deal has been reached. Currently, at the time of this recording, I don't know yet. So this message is coming to you from an uncertain past. Hopefully, a deal has been made. What we writers are asking for is very reasonable, a small share of the record profits that studios and streamers continue to make. We are asking for less than 2% of those profits to help make screenwriting a middle-class career again. The industry has changed in recent years. The popularity of streaming and the rise of mini rooms means writers have had to work more to make less room for upward mobility, smaller and fewer residual payments. The truth is, despite what the industry might say, profits are higher, budgets are higher, and writers' pay is lower. Adjusting for inflation, screenwriter pay has declined 14% over the last decade. TV writer-producer pay has declined 23%. Half of all TV writers today are working for minimums, and we need to restore what's been taken away from writers. That's what we're fighting for, what we're negotiating for, what we may at this moment be striking for. I hope not. No writer wants to be on strike. We want to work, but we are willing to strike because collective bargaining, being in this together, is the only way to make change. The WGA stands together for the betterment of all writers. So if we are on strike at this moment, it is not because we don't want to work. It is because we want our industry to survive. I hope there's a deal. I hope this ad is terribly outdated by the time this episode is released. I hope we're back at work. But if not, hey, I'll see you on the picket lines. And hello, I'm Brian T. Arnold, and this is 39-Minute Conversations, a podcast about reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. But I've only got 39 minutes to do it because I will not be paying for Zoom Pro. My guest today is a writer, actress, and comedian. We met writing for a network sketch comedy showcase, and since then, she wrote for Disney's The Owl House, which ended its run just a few weeks ago. You've also probably seen her in a ton of commercials or heard her voice in any number of shows. She happens to be one of my closest friends in the industry. Please welcome Madeleine Hernandez.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this. I'm happy to have you. I'm very excited. We have known each other, Madeleine, for about 7 years, I think.
Yeah,
we've been friends for maybe 3 or 4 of those, which we are going to get into. But before we do, I do want to say I'm very excited to have you on, get into your story and journey a little bit. I know you so well, but I know there's things I can still learn about you.
Oh, I don't think so.
Probably not. Let's do this anyway.
Yeah.
What's up?
I was just going to say, I think you know the whole thing. You could just narrate this whole thing and not even need me, honestly.
I tried I did a couple test recordings without inviting you in, just be like, I can get through Madeleine's stuff. It's fine.
Yeah.
Typically, I do start these interviews the same way. I created this podcast because the pandemic turned me into a shut-in, and I needed something social and performative to do outside of writing, but still from the safety and comfort of my reclusive lifestyle. But you know that better than most people, because you and our friend and future guest of the podcast, Jessica Perlman, we started a weekly FaceTime in the early days of the pandemic, almost 3 years ago now, and we still do it every week. Sometimes we meet in person, but it's still mostly FaceTime. And that helped me get through the pandemic's darkest days, and it's still something that I look forward to. So I just wanted to start with, thanking you for helping me get through this tough time. It's really meant a lot to me.
Oh gosh. Thank you. And thanks, JP. If you're listening,
She listens. See, I think you don't, but she
we
listens.
don't have to talk about me not listening to this. I don't do it out of spite. I do it out of pure laziness. No, it's true. It is still something I look forward to every week. It feels weird when we don't meet up every week, and it has helped me survive not just the pandemic, but I don't know. It's, someone from college recently asked me who my closest friends were, and I was like, oh, definitely Brian and Jessica. And I was like, oh, right. That started because I wanted to make them watch Cats one night, and
That
now
is the
we
origin
hang out every
story.
week.
That is the origin story for this. It was not, I don't think we ever intended it to be what it became. It became, because it started as just like us chatting, us stuck in our homes for what we thought would be a very short period of time, or hoped would be at least. And you were very adamant that we all needed to get on FaceTime together and watch Cats because for some reason you unequivocally loved that movie and wanted to share it with us.
See, I had seen it twice in theaters, and it had been such a remarkable community or communal viewing experience that I wanted my friends to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that first time, we could not figure out a way to watch it all together that didn't involve uh, whatever iTunes blacking out the screen for us because of
Yeah,
copyright issues.
something like that.
And so we just started watching really bad, funny movies instead. And then eventually I showed you Cats and you guys regretted it. But I did make you rewatch my highlights
You
on my
did
birthday.
on your
And that was the
birthday.
best present I could have asked for.
On your birthday just a few days ago. It was, we had to fight from, no offense to the people who made Cats. I'm sure, great job. You made the movie you wanted to make. People like it.
It made a lot of us happy.
What's that?
It made a lot of us happy.
Made a lot of people happy. But on your birthday, you wanted to rewatch it, and we managed to talk you down to just show us your favorite parts. Just to scrub through this thing.
Yeah, and even that felt about as long as the film itself.
Aside from our weekly FaceTimes, how have the last few years been for you? How did you stay sane? What have you learned about yourself? How are you maybe different than when this all started?
Oh, that's not a deep question at all, which makes sense why you would only set aside 39 minutes
Mm-hmm.
to talk about it.
Sure.
Sure, yeah. Gosh, I'm honestly surprised that I mean, I don't want this to sound too dark, but I feel surprised that I'm alive and well,
Hmm.
to be frank. It never got to the point where I was afraid that might not happen, but
Mm-hmm.
it felt that way. And um, having being able to just chat with you and JP regularly really helped.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I started my relationship with Anthony during the pandemic.
Who?
My boyfriend.
Oh,
Right, yeah, he was at my birthday. I don't think you guys talked at all.
no. I saw some dude hanging out, and I was like, I don't know what his deal is. I'm
Like,
just going to leave him
who's
alone.
this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really a lifeline I wasn't looking for, but
Mm-hmm.
was pleasantly surprised by. Honestly, my Owl House crew, we worked a lot over Skype during the pandemic, and when you're going through something in a communal way, it brings people together, and I think that's evident in our little trio
Mm-hmm.
and the writers' room, and I'm sure also the storyboard artists on the Owl House. And um, when I was living with roommates at the beginning of the pandemic, um, that was a time that really brought us together. I learned that I do really well inside.
Same.
Yeah, I think the first month my sister and I were chatting, and we were kind of like, oh, we were raised for this. Yeah, we weren't sports or outdoors kinds of kids. It was like, oh, mom's at work, let's just watch TV all day. So we were doing very well the first few months of the pandemic. And then you realize you need like physical touch on some level, and so then you kind of start getting antsy to be around some people, but not too many people.
Definitely still not too many
I
people, at
still
least on
don't want to
my
do
end. Yeah.
crowds. Yeah.
Same. Let's get into, you said, you were raised watching TV with you and your sister. TV raised you.
Mhm.
So you grew up in, let's talk about that. So you grew up in Orange County.
Uh-huh.
And at what point did you know that like this was what you wanted to do with your life, that you wanted to write, do comedy, act? Was that when you were a kid watching stuff, or did that not come till later?
No, I honestly, I was in denial. Oh man, I don't know. It's hard to, I think it's really easy to, like retrofit, like, you know, little kid version of you into what you are now, kind of. But
Sure.
I don't know that I ever thought of it as a career. I mean, obviously, as a kid, I grew up watching Saturday Night Live and Mad TV and In Living Color because my mom was a big, comedy junkie. So we grew up watching all of those things, even though they might have been a little age inappropriate.
Sure.
But I don't know, it was the 90s. It was different. Um, yeah, my mom had Mad magazines from like the 70s and 80s.
Hmm.
She had comedy albums, she had Cheech and Chong albums. So I was always around it. And I remember watching Conan O'Brien show and thinking, man, that looks like so much fun. And obviously you grow up with people being like, oh, you should be on SNL, or like, oh yeah, I want to be on SNL. But it's I never knew anybody in the entertainment industry or anybody that was a writer professionally, and so I never viewed it
Hold on. I think.
attainable. It was almost like in a different realm.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't even think about comedy writing until I was working as a program assistant at Fuller Seminary.
Sure.
And my old roommate when I was working at Disneyland, Amber Llewellyn, she was taking improv and sketch writing classes at iOS, and I joined her and I started taking sketch comedy classes, and that was the first time where I felt really affirmed in my ability to be funny and write comedy.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I allowed myself to take an acting class. I think it was the summer after we did Showcase
Mhm.
that I took my first professional acting class and really felt affirmed in my abilities there. And I didn't even know that writing for animation was something that was possible or an option. I mean, I'd never thought about it. And I've been watching adult animation my whole life, right? I started with The Critic when I was a kid and
Sure. Every kid's
never got in.
entryway, yeah, is the critic.
uh, is it really?
No,
Oh, okay. I know some people watch Dr. Katz. I never got into it, but
I never got
um,
into either of those, but like usually you'd hear like The Simpsons or Futurama, depending on what age the person you're
I
talking
mean,
to.
I
But the critic being
definitely.
your first one is interesting.
You know why? I think it's because it was cultural commentary
Hmm.
in a cartoon, and I was a since a young age I've been very like culturally fluent, especially in things that were culturally before my time. That's because of my mom and watching things like in Living Color and old reruns of other shows. And so even Mystery Science Theater 3000, the original shows are very old references and very
Hmm.
old cultural touch points, but I knew a lot of them because of what my mom had introduced me to and growing up watching old films and old TV shows. So um yeah, the critic for me was so funny. And anyways, I grew up watching animation, was always
Hmm.
watching some kind of animation, and then it wasn't until a friend of mine who was an exec at Disney had passed my resume around, and I realized I could potentially write for animation.
Hmm.
Um, which I think really goes to show you that like it's what is it? Opportunity is where
Luck
chance.
luck is where opportunity meets preparation.
Yes,
Yeah,
you got it.
I got
You
it.
knew
You
what
were
I meant.
almost there. Yeah. You
Yeah,
don't you
you can
don't
tell
need to
him.
know the exact phrase to
Yeah,
live it.
exactly. You can tell I'm really smart and well written by how articulate I am in this moment. But yeah, it was like, oh, Disney was starting this new apprenticeship program, and I had just written my first pilot thanks to my experience on the showcase, and uh, therein was luck.
Mhm.
And I, right?
Yeah.
And I got to meet with Dana Terrace, the showrunner of Owl House, and John Bailey Owen, the show editor, and we really hit it off, and the rest is history.
Okay, well, we're gonna get into Owl House. I'm excited to talk
All right.
about it, but I do want to talk more about your journey leading up to it a little bit.
Mhm.
One thing that I think is interesting, you alluded to it, is that you, like most of us, everybody who's in this industry who doesn't come from, a lot of money or from somebody else in this industry, we're working all kinds of weird jobs just to stay afloat. And one of your jobs was you were a character actor at Disneyland.
Mhm.
I know you were, what all characters did you play?
Wow, you just outed me.
I'm sorry. Am I not supposed to? I can bleep it.
I think like the legal not legal phrase, I don't know. The phrase is like I was friends with them,
Oh,
right?
okay. Got it.
So I mean, I guess I don't really care. I just don't want to I don't want anybody to get in trouble.
I can bleep out your
Don't
character
do
name.
it. No, 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 no. Don't do it. Don't you kowtow to their lawyers. Just kidding.
Yeah, we're on.
If you guys are listening, don't come after us. Yeah, I was
You were
friends with
friends with Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Donald, Pinocchio, Coda, which is from Brother Bear.
Mm-hmm.
I was briefly friends with Stitch, but my arms were too long. I don't know how else to describe that. Also briefly friends with the Chipmunks, but was not broad-shouldered enough.
So long arms, thin shoulders.
Yeah, I have for my size, and JP and I have discussed this, that she's several inches taller than me.
I'm aware.
But other than that, we had the exact same measurements, and that includes shoulders, but my arms might be a little bit longer than hers. My wingspan
Interesting.
is like I'm 5'3", but I come in at like a whopping 5'1". So
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
Interesting. Good.
a monkey.
Everybody on this podcast is getting your measurements now, which I don't know if
Exactly.
yeah, new
Send me a
territory for
jacket,
this
I
show.
guess. Yeah, so I did that, and before, I think Toontown just reopened after a revamp, but
Mhm.
prior to that, there was a show that used to open Toontown, and I used to do that, and that was a lot of fun. And then there was something called the uh anyways, there's a part where Mickey Mouse would lead the band from the castle down to the train station, and I would do that. And in the ranks, we called it the Death March because it was like a solid like 40 minutes of nonstop choreography in direct sunlight, and
Ugh,
you had to be giving it approximately 200%, because when you're in a costume that weighs 10 plus pounds, it really looks like you're only giving like 30% if you're not going all out. So
jeez.
there's a certain attitude of excellence that you feel compelled to give a lot of the time. And
Mhm.
uh it's it's a weird brotherhood of I don't know, performers,
Mhm.
that have a certain experience that only a few people can relate to, for sure.
Yeah, it seems unique. You hear, different stories and rumors about the people who might be under those costumes, or I'm sorry, friends with those characters. So it is interesting. And so, what maybe do you have any experiences from your time as a friend of those characters that really like stand out?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of negative ones, like like when you're getting physically assaulted.
Sure.
Like I was sucker punched in the side of the head as when I was friends with Mickey by like a kid that was at least like 6'1", and then like his like mom was there, and they just laughed, and I got pretty hurt on that one.
Oh man.
I mean, compared to what I experienced, there were people that experienced much, much worse. Um, if we're going positive,
Sure.
we're choosing to, there were a lot of people who, a lot of adults, some elderly adults especially, who, they're coming to Disneyland for the first time and they
Mm-hmm.
want to meet Mickey and Minnie Mouse, and it's a very emotional experience for them.
Mm.
And I don't know, it's like, it's not something that I anticipated, but it was really moving in the moment. And you kind of realize, oh, it's not just about a cartoon character. It's like this really is an iconic brand that tends to denote or communicate a type of experience or special memories that people have. Um, I've been around proposals. I've done make-a-wishes that, you
Mm.
know, some that were really fun and some that were really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Um, there was one time, I don't know if they do it anymore, but we used to do these birthday performances at Plaza Inn, one of the restaurants inside the park. And I was hanging out with Minnie Mouse, and some kid ripped off her glove.
You can do
so
that.
I so I had to like hide it under the other one, and it's like, what do you do when somebody does that? And it's like, oh, it was so funny, but I was so scared that somebody was going to point and scream, and it was going to turn into like something on the news, and because they're going to be like, oh, I saw skin. It was so scary.
So there was a character, there was a Minnie Mouse with a human hand, like a character,
Exactly.
just like
Exactly.
most of the characters in Cats, who for some reason
Yeah,
had human
exactly.
hands. Great movie.
Exactly.
Um,
You get it.
you moved on, so you had probably what is a rare experience of going from performer at Disneyland to like then writing for a Disney Channel show. If I was like making the biopic of your life, that would be like, well, that's the arc right there. Like starting
Mm.
at this level and ending up at this level. So
Would
let's
you believe that there are more of us?
I would believe it, but I wouldn't like if you tell me I would have no reason to call you a liar, but it's not something that I would have thought
Well,
about.
when I joined the apprentice program, there was another woman in the program who I had actually worked with, and we were
Hmm.
friends at Disneyland, and she had hosted me a number of times when she was a character host. She met her husband there. He's a photopass photographer, and she's writing on oh, Alyssa, please don't hate me if you listen to this. What's it called? Firebuds, which is a Disney preschool show.
Oh, cool.
So, and of course, both of our original samples have to do with Disneyland. So,
It sounds like a formative experience. It makes sense. We all draw from our histories, and that's something that could be really fun to write about and play in that world.
yeah, yeah.
So you mentioned you started on that show as a writer's apprentice.
Mhm.
Um, what is let's see, so I don't have a ton of experience with TV, but tell me, I would love to hear about the writer apprentice program at Disney, how it works, what was it like becoming a writer, an apprentice writer, yeah, that whole process.
Yeah. Do you watch TV at all? Just like curious.
I've
Ted
heard of
Lasso
it.
doesn't count.
I've Ted Lasso counts. Ted
Ted
Lasso is
Lasso
television,
does not count.
but I watch other shows as well. But
Name
continue.
one.
Ted Lasso
Oh my God.
and
You're
Shrinking from
fired.
the producers of Ted
Oh
Lasso.
my God.
Um,
And Scrubs, also from the producers of Ted Lasso.
it's like you've heard my ads before.
I
I've
get it.
plugged
You
them
love
all.
Bill Lawrence.
He's great. But yeah, Disney apprentice. What's it like being an apprentice writer? How did you get into that?
Well, again, I got into that because of my luck, the
Sure.
opportunities,
Everything
preparation.
in this business comes down. Like, there is a level of luck in any kind of position you get in this business. That's just
That's
uh,
absolutely true.
I think people who deny that are discounting, people who are like, oh, I pulled myself up. Like, yeah, you did, to a position that you got lucky. Like there
I
is an element of luck for
mean,
everybody.
absolutely. Every non-entertainment job I've ever had, I've only ever gotten through a connection
Same.
or by somebody making, being like, oh, I'm a reference for this person and I know this other guy personally. So if I had to come to terms with the fact of like, oh, if that's how I get my jobs outside of the industry, how can I expect this to be anything else really?
Sure.
Um, yes. So there was an exec who was head of the apprentice program at the time. It has since been revamped. I don't know what it's being called anymore, because it's a program that's only supposed to last for about like, I think 14 months, because legally you're part of the union as part of an apprentice writer, which is really cool. You get to join the animation guild. And I'm sure listeners are aware of how important the unions are.
Yeah, they are.
So, which is really awesome because, you're protected with labor laws, and that's not really the case for a lot of entry level or apprentice level positions. And as an apprentice writer, your job is, the program was explained to me as an opportunity for underrepresented types of writers or newbie writers to get their foot in the door, have an experience in a writer's room, and get experience writing. Sorry, I like drinking sparkling water, and it's coming up at bad times.
That sounds a lot like what happened to Ted Lasso in season 1, both in the premiere and also the finale of season 1, actually.
They're not supporting this podcast.
Nobody is.
It's like just your mom listening.
Mostly, yes. Hi, Mom.
Wait. Hi, Mary Alice.
Yeah, you got it. You remember.
Mary Alice, call us. Let's be friends, Mary Alice.
She called me while we were recording this. I had to send her a voicemail.
You call her back and you put her on speakerphone.
Oh, I will be calling her after.
Okay, good. So, all right, okay. The apprentice program. Anyways, that's how it was described to me, but there wasn't really any oversight over each room, and as I'm sure you know, each writer's room is going to be different because every showrunner is different. The rooms are structured differently. Some rooms didn't have apprentice writers, some did, and they were treated more like glorified writers' assistants.
Sure.
Which a lot of people don't know are actually different from apprentice writers or even assistant writers. And I think that's part of the reason why they were revamping the program, or at least the name of it, because because I got, after 14 months as an apprentice writer, you automatically get moved up to assistant writer. And so when I have that on my resume, a lot of times it's interpreted as a writer's assistant.
Sure.
But, from day one, I got to pitch on, I got to do punch-ups. I got to pitch story ideas. I was immediately included in this room. And, I don't know, I can't speak to everyone else's experience, but I do think part of that is because we had a really young showrunner. We had a really young writer's room. Everybody was just like a huge weirdo, which I loved.
Sure.
A lot of them are not just writers, but also animators. And so a lot of people are coming from a multidisciplinary background. And it was really cool. It was awesome to be on the other side of Disney. As a performer, as a character performer, you're kind of treated like garbage, which is like the trickle down Eisner effect. He famously called character performers monkeys in suits, and sauce is really replaceable. And unfortunately, that method of leadership, at least when I left, had not changed. It's like there's like a unnecessary ladders or steps of ladders in the bureaucracy, unnecessary red tape. It's more about seniority and less about skills and abilities a lot of times when it comes to leadership, which sucks because then you lose a lot of talent that way, because people get frustrated or burned out, and you end up promoting the wrong people essentially. But corporate, not to say that doesn't happen in a corporate position, but it was really nice to feel valued. It was really nice to feel like I was part of something a little bit bigger. And also as an apprentice writer, at least in my position, again, I got to go to records. And so I got to be there when, Wendy Malick walked in, and, and Sarah Nicole Robles and Mae Whitman, and, we did sessions over Zoom with, oh my gosh, I hate that I'm forgetting his name right now. Carrie Russell's husband.
Oh, Matthew Reese.
Yes, Matthew Reese, who is such a gentleman. Peter Gallagher. I mean,
I mean,
so many amazing.
The cast is amazing on that show.
The cast is truly stacked.
What was it like writing and knowing that those words that you were writing were going to be so said by, those kind of like that kind of caliber of actor?
Well, I mean, a lot of times we didn't know yet, because it's not until a script is finalized that you start that then it's sent to casting, and casting puts together the breakdowns. But it is cool when you're in records and you're like, I wrote that line and they just said it, or
Sure.
so we would do table reads of scripts. When it was time to do punch-ups, we do table reads, and it was really fun for everybody to do their own impressions of each character.
Sure.
And so yeah, I really loved that. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people hated working over the internet when the pandemic happened, but I really liked it. I think it, at least for me, it made me feel like the writers' room became really close, because the lines became a little bit blurred, and you're online for so long that it's like you kind of lose whatever semblance of, I don't know, quote unquote professionalism or you know what I mean, of a facade of professionalism, right? And everybody's animals are coming into camera, and I adopted my cat and Dana adopted her cat during the pandemic, and so it was like yeah, it was a wild time. It was a wild time. One of our writers, Emmy, is in she's on the East Coast, so she had completely different time frame from everybody else. It was wild.
The Owl
Wild, but I
House,
like.
the Owl House really has seemed to connect with people a lot. I'm not as familiar with it. I watched a bit of it in prep for this interview, but I'm perusing. There's fan art, there's fan fiction, there's these fan-made games. What's it like to know that something you worked on means so much to people, and why do you think it connected with them in that kind of way?
It's really crazy, man. First I'd like to put some respect on our name. We are a Peabody Award winning
I apologize. The
Disney
Peabody
cartoon.
Award-winning
Thank
Disney
you.
animated series, The Owl House.
Thank you.
All episodes available to stream on Disney Plus.
Thank you. Yes, that is true. The first episode I co-wrote was in the second season, and it got such amazing feedback. Like reading all of the tweets and seeing people's response to it was so cool, because I mean, it had been like a year since I had written, since John and I had written it.
Sure.
And I unfortunately, like I had wrapped before they even started doing the voice records for it. So I didn't get to be involved in that aspect, but I don't know. Part of me felt a little detached, because it's like, oh, I don't feel like I belong to this, because I don't know, at some point it's yours, but it's not.
Sure. I mean, it's a collaborative medium in so many ways.
It's collaborative, but also I think, when you're writing on live action, if you're lucky, you get to be on set when it's filmed, right?
Sure.
In animation, the production time is so prolonged that by the time it airs, you're like, I honestly don't even remember what this is about. But it has been really remarkable. It has been very affirming. It has felt really cool to see a show connect with people. I think it connects with a lot of fans because it has to do with misfits. People connect with feeling left out, like feeling they don't belong, looking to be understood, looking for their found family. We have such amazing LGBTQIA representation on the show, not just on screen, but behind the screens, voice talent, production. I mean, our crew is really so I feel like diverse is such a trite phrase, but
Sure.
and I'm sure there's a better one, but I'm looking at the timer countdown and it's starting to get to me. But it really, I felt like our show from a whole top to bottom was just really representative of the world at large, and I think that the audience can see that. They can see that
Mhm.
in the jokes we make. You know, people on the show they love comics, they love anime, they love illustration, they love animation, they love D&D, Magic the Gathering, you know, things that I think are normally categorized as geeky nerdy shit, right?
Sure.
You know, like Dana and I love Star Trek, you know, and she incorporated Star Trek into the third season, or like an iteration of it there, you know, and
Mhm.
you know, named one of the creatures in season 2 Jean-Luc, you know, and it's like it's stuff like that where it was like every kind of niche interest was given a nod of recognition, and I think people really appreciated that. And you have a lot of people on this show that were involved on other properties that people really gravitated to, like
Mhm.
Steven Universe, Star Against Forces of Evil, uh,
Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls. Thank you. That's what I was
Mhm.
thinking of. uh, yeah, and yeah, I don't know. And also you have the people involved in behind the scenes on the show, and a lot of the voice actors really getting involved with the fans.
Mm.
And I haven't really seen that before. You know, Sissy, who does the voice of Lilith, would host, along with Rebecca Rose, one of our later production assistants. She would host these like post hoots, you know, like these like Instagram live chats with writers or technical directors or the art directors or storyboard artists. I mean, really across the gamut, other voice artists, to talk about different episodes. And you'd have fans tune in, and then fans would make things. And it didn't just feel like a show that we made and then kind of let go of. It felt
Mm.
like, I mean, as a whole, right? I'm not speaking
Right.
just for myself, but like in the world the show came out, but then it turned into a conversation a lot
Yeah.
of the times, and the voice actors kind of bridge the gap between the production and post show, where it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I'm describing it well enough,
No,
but
I
do you
think
know what I
so.
mean?
You're basically, I mean, it just becomes like it almost, yeah, it becomes a conversation. Like modern shows, especially with the rise of social media and all these things, don't always take advantage of that. It seems like you all had a passionate fan base that you also wanted to connect with, which I think is really nice and probably did help to really cultivate a community around that show.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, you know, I know a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with Twitter, but in its heyday, you know, I remember, you know, when episodes would air and we'd all be in the writer's room, and, you know, we'd be sharing, you know, really funny memes that people had tweeted about the show, and, um, you know, talking about other people's theories into what this
Hmm.
meant, and reading into things. And um, yeah, I don't know. It's cool, and I have friends whose kids watch the show, which is also
That's
strange, because
nice.
then they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, so and so loves it," and I'm like, "That's so weird," because
Madeline,
I work on this. Yeah.
we have less than a minute left.
Oh,
Where can people follow you if they want to follow you? Instagram, Twitter, anything else you want to plug? I just want to make sure we get that in.
thank you. On Instagram, I'm at hey_Madeleine, Madeleine, and on Twitter, I'm at it's a Madeline. But I
Great.
don't know if there's an underscore. There might be one.
I'll put it in the description. Anything you want to plug or
Cool.
anything?
Wear a
Okay.
mask. Still wear a mask.
Still wear masks.
Still wear a
Perfect.
mask, please.
Madeline, what do you think happens after we die?
God, that's such a good question. Okay, here's my theory. I think when you die,
Your meeting has ended. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to 39-Minute Conversations, hosted and produced by Brian T. Arnold. Music by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and tune in for new episodes, and don't forget to rate and review. If you didn't like what you heard, please don't do any of that. That's okay too. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe and be well.